Hi everyone, this is Juliana. I am a PhD student in sociology doing research in trustworthy autonomous system security with a research focus on sociotechnical systems, distributed cognitive systems particularly, but having, of course, a heavily component of my focus is the human and societal aspects of sociotechnical systems. So today I brought a blog article that I saw in Microsoft's blog that I found this week. I super recommend anybody working in the area of artificial intelligence and cybersecurity, how these areas intersect, should take a look at this article. I think very few people, very few organizations have the access of resources, knowledge, and experience that Microsoft has to come up with this article. What happened was Eric Horvitz, who is the chief scientific officer, was invited to testify before the U.S. Senate Armed Services Committee, Subcommittee on Cybersecurity, for a hearing on the use of AI in the Department of Defense cyber missions. So for those who do not understand, so the National Congress, not only the US, but many countries in the world, when they have democratic processes, when they discuss policy making in particular topics, they will invite specialists in the field to come into these hearings and testify, to share their knowledge of how the field is advancing, what the state of the field is like. So Eric Horvitz was there. They delivered a very extensive document on the state of the art of the intersection between artificial intelligence and cybersecurity, explaining scientific advancements and trends in the area. And so first he explains a bit of the cybersecurity landscape. It says, while the attacks in computing systems and infrastructure, they continue to grow in complexity and scale, in velocity, frequency, and the new attacks, and also they see like these increasingly more sophisticated attack techniques aimed at disrupting critical infrastructure and accessing confidential data. In 2021, in the year 2021 alone, the Microsoft's Defender Suite, it's Microsoft 365 Defender Suite, blocked 9.6 billion with BBB ball billion malware threats, 35.7 billion phishing and malicious emails, and 25.6 billion attempts to hijack accounts, both of individuals and corporate accounts. And I think that this shows two things. One is that cyber attacks are very intense. They're happening with a level of intensity that is not seen, of course, when we're here in the other side of the screen. We don't see what's going on internally in these systems, but those who are these systems operators, right, those who are monitoring the systems, they can see these. And this shows how intense the cyber security area is. But on the other hand, it also shows how resilient the systems are, right? Because if you have this magnitude of threats, this means that we have a good resilience in the system. Nonetheless, it's a lot. And he says that, well, the challenges today, they were actually exacerbated. Challenges in cybersecurity were exacerbated by the increasing fluidity between online work and personal activities, particularly due to the pandemic, lockdowns. They took people away from those remote environments to working remotely. In not only that, but it was like a large scale, like very sudden shift and massive, and that was very challenging. So that the area of cybersecurity was heated, was intensified because of that move from localized professional activities to like an area where personal lives, the border between our personal activities online and our work is blurred. We use the same computers. We are on social media at the same time that we're doing our personal work. And that, in a sense, is an increase in vulnerability, because the human aspect of cybersecurity is very much present. Social engineering is a big aspect of cybersecurity attacks. And of course, when people are at home, they're a bit more, let's say, I don't know, maybe less aware, or they're a bit more relaxed. It might be a bit more vulnerable. They might be a bit more vulnerable to the techniques of social engineering. So, and this is all intensified by artificial intelligence, because artificial intelligence can read behavior, human behavior, and mislead people into doing things that they would usually not do, like linking a specific sites, links, and download documents and things like this that they usually wouldn't if they were in a more controlled environment. This is a bit of a difficult realization, right? Because then it might sort of trigger the idea that then being in a controlled environment is better for the workflow. But this is not the arguments we're getting into today. This is just a realization that moving away from the controlled environment placed a bit of vulnerability in the system. So we just have to be aware of that and create solutions that adapts to the current conditions. So the advancements in artificial intelligence have been significant in the past decades, particularly in the past decade. AI is focused on developing principles and mechanisms to solve tasks that are typically associated with human cognition, such as perception, reasoning, language, and learning. And so creating human-like tasks, right? That would be the focus of artificial intelligence. The article points to the origin of the term artificial intelligence in 1955. Thought that was very interesting. It was first proposed in a research proposal for a summer training in academia in the US. Some very well-known scientists at the time, they proposed a summer school to discuss improvements in artificial intelligence. That was the first time that the term was proposed. And in the last decade, we've seen a lot of advancement in machine vision, natural language processing, speech recognition, diagnosis, reasoning, robotics, and machine learning. And they point, Eric, or Microsoft, they point to significant accuracy in the use when using deep neural nets with large amounts of data in computational resources. The way that they put there is very impressive on how these systems are performing with great accuracy. So there has been some breakthroughs, especially in the areas of machine vision and language. And they point to how this is an area that has great potential when deployed. This is a technology that, when deployed with responsible and insightful, in a responsible and insightful manner, you can achieve, you can harness great opportunities. An example of this is healthcare. But in the same way that this technology can be used for good, it can also be used for bad. And there are lots of malicious actors out there. So at the same time that we need to study and advance in harnessing opportunities, we need to continue to understand how it is being used by malicious actors, so that we can respond to their attacks and their initiatives that can have potential disruption in society. So advancing cybersecurity with AI is actually the focus of the article, and they will point to different possibilities of application of AI in cybersecurity. So threat incident prioritization, so they can prioritize the response to the threat incident, adapt the responses, as they go, because then the AI systems, they can read the scenario or the dynamics of the attacks with much more capability than humans, of course. So they can adapt the responses as the attack happens. In reading, observing past attacks can also help to inform, detect and predict patterns for in future attacks. And then the use of AI in cybersecurity can also help scale, orchestrate, and automate response actions. One thing that I found very interesting here is that AI technologies can provide automated interpretation of signals generated during attacks. And to me, this was very, it struck me how you can apply, these to read the signals when the attacks are happening. So if I was, I think this has a lot to do with like physics and I think that this is an area of research, like deep research, very technical and specialized research that deserves a lot of attention. AI at stages of security. So security has different, the cybersecurity chain has different stages, of course. So they're pointing to the application in different areas. So prevention, detection, investigation, and remediation, and threat intelligence are areas that AI methods can help. So it can prevent, for example, in prevention, it can prevent phishing attacks. And in detection, the application of AI can help detect signal patterns and block or isolate potentially infected machines or networks, right? It can sort of understand the dynamics, how the network is behaving, and based on the experience or the knowledge of patterns of attack, it can isolate that area of the network just to prevent further damage, or to prevent, the spread of that attack. Now, they point to how this is a bit of a sensitive technique, because you might have a false positive and you might interrupt business processes that are important to the operation. And when you do that on a false positive, then that's not very good for the business, for the organization overall. So this AI application in this area has to be done in a sensible way. So some research, some recommendations, best practices in cybersecurity hygiene needs to be shared throughout the organization. Training and education on cybersecurity hygiene and cybersecurity techniques overall. Investment in research and development on harnessing machine learning in every step of the cybersecurity attack chain. So making sure that the use of AI covers all aspects of cybersecurity, all of the aspects that are involved in the cyber attack mechanisms and chain. The creation of cross-sector partnerships, so that organizations can share knowledge and understanding. And they also recommend cybersecurity, a specific benchmark and letter boards in the organization, so that people can always update and stay updated with the latest trends and what is happening. So this is an area that evolves very rapidly. Every day you have new stuff going on. So it's, for you to have like a visual board, like a place where people can share that within the organization is very important. Now the article is much longer. I do recommend you get into AI-powered cyber attacks, approaches to offensive AI, basic automation, and social engineering, and so on. So one of the, so AI-powered social engineering is something that's quite interesting here, because human perception is in psychology are weak links in the cyber defense, and AI can be used to exploit this vulnerability. So when malicious actors use AI for social engineering, influencing people to perform tasks that are not, in their interest. So nowadays we're in social media, you have these sort of mental triggers to make you click in that video or that link just because they want your attention. In the same way, this can be used to social engineer people into malicious threats, triggering larger attacks and so on. So I will link down the article. I highly recommend, I think anybody working in cybersecurity and artificial intelligence at the intersection of these areas should take a look at the whole article. It's very extensive, but totally worth it. I think that very few organizations have access to this kind of overall broad understanding of AI and cybersecurity. So I highly recommend. Okay, that was it for today. It's been quite a few weeks since I posted, but hopefully I'll catch up next week as well.